This is Get Sellers Calling You, and I'm Beatty Carmichael. Learn more at our website at getsellerscallingyou.com. Hello, everyone. I'm Beatty Carmichael, and welcome to another session of episode of Get Sellers Calling You Realtor Podcast. And I'm really excited today because I get to interview not only another great agent, a previous client of ours, but also a personal friend named Paul Tosello from Dallas, Texas. And I'm really excited to have you on, Paul, because not only are you a good, strong top producer, but I love your impeccable character. And I really want the guys out there and gals, if we use the term generically, to hear from you. So how are you doing, Paul?
I'm doing really well, Beatty. Thank you. Good to join you.
Well, it is great to be joined by you. So just a little background for everyone. By the way, just a reminder, too, this is an internet call. So if there's any interruptions due to internet quality, just please ignore that. But Paul and I got our start many years back because one of my other good friends in the industry that I've interviewed, Stuart Sutton, I think at the time, if I remember right, Paul, you were starting to go with a marketing service of some sort, and you were talking to Stuart, and Stuart said, "No, don't go there. You need to use Beatty." Is that how it happened?
That's exactly right. I was at the table at family reunion for our company. Family reunion is a gathering of all kinds of producers to mastermind, and then of course you've got all the servicers in the auditorium, and I'm standing at the table and I'm asking all kinds of questions, and I was about ready to go. It's a predictive analysis company to try to identify sellers, and I called Stuart to visit when we were talking. I asked him about it, and he said, "No, you need to talk to this guy." So I called you, and we worked together for what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 or 3, maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah, Listing Grabber, correct?
Uh-huh.
I remember the name, and it was a profit center both years.
I just kind of want to set the stage with you because the reason I want to interview, I try to interview top producers with impeccable character. And I remember, as you and I have spoken over the years, one of the challenges that we've talked about a lot is a lot of the real estate teams are driving business by cold calling homeowners and violating the do not call list. And you've been real frustrated because you won't violate the do not call list. Do you remember those conversations?
Yeah, I do. It's challenging, when you consider that, I'm going to guess now, probably 8 out of 10 phone numbers are do not call. If I were to count up the number of expired listings, for example, since 2003 that are on the do not call list and that we couldn't call, it might knock me off the chair.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into that. I just wanted to share real briefly why I'm so excited about talking with you, because to build a large business as you've done and to keep it going strong and to do everything with impeccable character and not a lot of times in sales we like to push the envelope because the objective is the goal as opposed to the character and integrity. So, but before we get started on all that, could you tell us just a little bit about you and about your business, and just let us know who Paul Tosello is?
No, I appreciate that. He didn't start out with impeccable quality and character. Christ brought that, and we've had that discussion too, right? And
yes,
with that, hopefully through this interview. But I started this business in '85, and most people probably weren't around then that are listening, but that's okay. My wife joined me in '89. She was working in the dental field as management and assistants and all that, and so I've got to spend all this time with my wife, my best friend, and my partner, and we started building teams in the early '90s. I found out that on the West Coast there was some team building going on. I wanted to find out about it, and through a trainer visiting and learning, kind of brought those ideas back, and that's when there wasn't hundreds and hundreds of teams back then. So today we still have a team. We're in the mid-cities, which is 15 minutes west of the Dallas-Fort Worth Airport.
Cool. And about how much volume do you do transaction-wise right now?
So we usually finish between 80 and 135
Okay.
is where we finish most years. So lately, the last 5, 6 years, it's been between 100 and 135 transactions. And to put it in perspective, I mean, I know people doing 1 to 2,000 transactions a year with teams of 40 and 50. I don't have that desire. And maybe we'll get into why down the road. But this is a good business where we're focused on taking care of the people. And I think it's working because they continue to come back. And that's
That is
really,
so that is so good. So now, are you the rainmaker with your team?
that's what I do.
Okay.
I've been on the phones for probably 2 to 3 hours a day, most business days going back to the late 80s.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So give me a real. So your team is how many listing agents? How many buyer agents?
So I handle the prospecting and the listings.
Okay.
I have 2 buyer representatives. Um, I have a contracts manager and I have a marketing person who helps us with the digital marketing today that's so advanced that we really needed someone like her who eats this stuff up to be the bridge between me and my coaching company, um, those who coach us.
Right.
Um, and so that's really the rough makeup of the team right now. It's been bigger. Right now we're around 5, 6 people, and that's where we probably will keep it for a bit.
Well, I was, you were talking about not wanting to grow to 1,000 transactions a year, and I remember talking back on Stewart at the year where he did $1 million in GCI, and he was kind of because it's not how much volume you do, it's the lifestyle that you have, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And he was
yeah,
sharing that one of his friends who did 3 times the volume had less take-home pay and less free time than he did. And I was thinking, it's all about that quality of life.
yeah, absolutely. And I wish I had learned that much, much earlier, right? So hopefully there may be some people who are newer into the business or younger, and they'll do some digging into that.
Well, let's talk about that. I'd like to find out as we kind of move this direction. So you're consistently, 100 transactions plus,
Mhm.
generally speaking. You're doing the rainmaking. What works? And then I also want to tie back into this whole thing that we talked about momentarily ago about not being impeccable, but through Christ, where the character is at least there. So talk to me, what are you doing? What have you found to consistently drive business into your team?
So I think the number one thing that causes us to have business, for our business here is the expired listing, number one, the past clients, number two, and taking care of them. If you will take care of the people, as the old saying goes, they will take care of you. So, in our business today, there's so much involved in a transaction, um, legally and technically. And, for example, Colleen does our contract management, contract negotiations in a lot of cases. And to step those people through those contracts, whatever number of pages it ends up being, 15 or 20 pages, um, there's a comfort that client has, that they verbalized, and that you can see in their body language that, what, this person is taking time with me today, help me understand what I'm stepping into. Um, and that goes such a long way.
Now, do you find that with the expireds, are they when you go through that, is that release and relief in their eyes with the expireds who've already just recently come through another relationship, or is this just with your past clients?
Um, that's just one segment I was discussing,
Okay.
Colleen, with our past clients. we've had families come back to us 10 times now, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times is the most
Wow.
that I can recall. And, with regard to the expired, I have listed, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 800. I don't know anymore, and sold the majority of those. Some had sat with 2 companies, 3 maybe. The longest was on the market, if I remember right, 2 years.
Wow.
And most of them will sell in 30 days or 10 showings, whichever come first, regardless of the kind of market we're in. If they follow our lead, that's what will happen. And so, yeah, they write and do stories for us and tell us that it was a relief. They're very glad that, they came into partnership with us.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, I'd like to dig in on both of these channels. I want to understand more of your process that works. I want to understand first with the expireds, what are you doing to get that business? Because I think a lot of folks out there listening to this, there's always expireds, and what can they do to acquire business? But I really want to find out, what are you doing on your past clients that keeps them coming back? I know you talked about Colleen being part of it, but I'd like to dig further in. Can you talk first about the expireds and just kind of give us what works, what's driving them into you?
Yeah. So the first thing with the expired is, number one, decide that that's what you want to do. Regardless of what it is, we can't keep jumping, right? Pick one and build a system. So by the time I get to the phone at 8 o'clock in the morning, the numbers have been researched, emailed. It's in our Vulcan 7 system, and I'm prepared to go to work. And we'll hit land, sea, and air. There'll be phone calls, there'll be emails, there'll be Facebook messages, there'll be LinkedIn messages, there'll be just about everything you can think of. Oh, and we had someone go into the door for a few years
Wow.
because of the do not call list. My only way to try to overcome that was go to the door.
Okay.
And so that paid dividends as well.
So not to interrupt, but I want to come back. So you're calling them, but you're also emailing, texting, Facebook. I mean, you're the one doing all of this. This isn't like some system or some assistant doing it on your behalf.
Well, no, actually, Elena
Okay.
is the person in charge of doing a lot of the research, as well as a company we utilize to do research for us.
Okay.
She'll send the emails. She'll do the Facebook messaging. She'll do the LinkedIn messaging.
Okay. Very good. So they're being communicated personally. You're picking up the phone and you're communicating as well.
Correct.
Okay.
I make the phone calls.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. Now take it from there. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, and that's really it. So at that point in time, we've used pretty much every possible way to try to get in touch. And like I said, I had to go to that extreme because everybody else is calling all the phone numbers. I'm trying to honor, as Christians, as you and I've talked, Paul said, submit to your authorities. Right?
Right.
I believe he wrote that in the time of Nero. So think about that. Peter and Paul, those were some rough times. So, so we're trying to submit to the authorities we've been placed under. I talked to the area supervisor here in Dallas, Fort Worth for the Republicans. And I said, because I found out that this is to the extent I researched this, politicians have the ability to call anybody they want to anytime. So he's got an interesting name. I can't remember. It's unique. I said, what if I perpetually run for office and just lose all the time? Does that mean I can call? He said, no, you can't do that. So I really researched this thing, right? And so that's why we try to hit every other possible way of trying to reach people. And that's how we're having success with it over the years.
The thing that comes to mind is, I think it's Zechariah. In chapter 4, it says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, says the Lord.
Yeah.
And what's hitting me is, you're honoring the Lord. You're following what the Lord has told you, which is, submit to the authorities, obey the rules. Mm-hmm. And by not bending the rules, but by honoring Christ, He's blessing you and bringing in all this consistent business. That's kind of the picture I get.
That's the only answer.
Yeah.
There are so many people calling every number here. Sellers tell me and by the way, part of that system is being first. So
Okay.
7:59, I'm dialing to hope they pick up at the 8 o'clock number, because that's when the law says we can call, right? So you really need to be first or second, or you're probably not going to get a chance to talk to
Gotcha.
the expired seller.
And now when you're calling the expireds, now I know it's you're in sales, so it's not just calling them, but there's probably some sort of an approach you take that's effective. What have you found? If I'm an expired person and you call me and it's now 8:01 and I pick up the phone, hello, this is Beatty. What do you
Hey,
say?
Beatty, Paul Tosello, Keller Williams Realty. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, great. Hey, I bet your phone's already lighting up, isn't it?
It actually is,
Yeah,
yes.
as the nightmare continues. So, hey, I saw the home 2 fall out of MLS. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. It's
Did you sell it?
no, we have not.
No. Have you relisted it yet?
Not yet.
Any idea why it didn't sell?
Uh, I really don't know. We had people coming through, but it just like there just wasn't that much interest. I don't know why.
And so you don't really have the answer yet as to why it's not selling.
No, my agent tells me it's we needed to keep dropping the price, but that's all.
Okay. All right. Which tells me a few things. But let me ask you a question. Did the agent happen to sit down with you and discuss the difference in today's new marketing world between passive marketing and active marketing?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Huge, huge difference. So think about today, Beatty, you and I could sit down and we can look at with our mobile device or our laptop at any realtor's listing, anywhere, anytime. We can spend the next 3 hours looking at listings, correct?
Right.
Yeah. Does that agent know that we're sitting at our kitchen table looking at their listings?
No.
They have no idea, none.
No.
See, the internet system is perfectly set up for buyers to get every possible piece of data on your home and then hide. You're
That makes
hiring
sense.
houses don't necessarily sell themselves. You're hiring the realtor, I think, Beatty, correct me if I'm wrong, you're hiring the realtor to be the go-between to show that buyer why your home is the right one and why it's priced right and why they need to get out and see it, right?
Right. I thought we were hiring the realtor to sell it,
Yeah.
and it
But how
didn't
will they
sell.
sell it if they can't talk to anybody?
That makes sense.
Okay. I have a solution. I'd like to come out and show it to you. We have found a system that will market and draw buyers in and identify almost 100% of them so I can communicate on your behalf. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does a little bit.
Would you want to learn a little bit more about it?
I would.
Yeah, let's set it up. So there's one approach right there,
Okay.
Beatty.
I like that.
To show, and it's absolutely accurate. The internet system is beautiful for buyers. You just have no idea. It's like window shopping on Michigan Avenue. All these people walking by the windows and window shopping, but if they don't turn and go in the store, the salesman's not coming out. There's no communication happening. There's no
You
way to
know,
find people.
that's a great analogy. I might steal that because you're
Yeah.
so right. They're walking by, they're glancing at it, but no one's coming out to bring them in. But yet, if you remember, like it's usually the foreign owners, they'll come outside, hey, come on into my store. They're doing everything to drive traffic in. Once you drive it in, then people buy.
Yeah. It's interesting. Colleen and I were walking in the mall one day. This is years and years ago. One of the best salespeople I ever met had that little file thing for nails.
Mm-hmm.
And we wanted to walk by, but she wouldn't let us. And sure enough, she worked on Colleen's nails and we bought the product.
I love
It
it.
was incredible. And yet it wasn't offensive. They just know how to engage.
You're listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. To increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence or from a geographic farm, learn about Agent Dominator. We guarantee your sales in writing or give your money back. To learn more, visit our website at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator from the menu. And now, back to the podcast. So how do you translate this? And now this is now my marketer's curiosity, not so much the role play. How do you translate this concept of coming out and grabbing the business and this active marketing versus passive when you sit down with someone, what's the process there?
In terms of a listing appointment?
Right, listing appointment or maybe just high level. So now you're at the listing appointment. What's really selling them to list with you, and what are you doing on this active marketing approach that you brought up on the call?
Yeah. So when I go in, it's all about questions, right? I mean, we need to be talking a lot less and asking more questions and let them talk. If they're talking, you're probably winning, right? And
Great
if
point.
we're talking, it's probably not going the way I want it to go, right? So, there's 9 aspects of the Tosello team support that we bring to the seller. And after all the questions are asked and I've learned and I've confirmed what they told me on the phone, by the way, I spend about 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the phone doing a pre-listing script, which essentially I've used for 30 years, probably 25, 30 years. It's a mini listing presentation before the presentation at the house to decide if I even want to go. And there's just appointments I just don't want to go on based for a number of different reasons. But once I'm there, it's learn, confirm, go through the 9 aspects of Tosello team support. And sometimes the client thinks there's one decision being made, theirs, as to if they want to list with me, but that's just not the case. We're making a decision if we want to take the listing. And I've walked away lately and given back more listings. It would scare you. It might scare me. I don't want to tell you about because it needs to be the right fit.
Yeah, it does.
It needs to be the right fit. And again, for some young agents who are just starting, this one is so hard. You almost have to live through it. But once you get beat up a little bit out there, try to take that to heart and realize, look for the right match as well. The only way to accomplish that, though, is to have a number of choices, right? Choices.
Right.
Similar choices, which means more appointments, not less, or at least more phone calls.
Let me ask you a question on, so making the phone call is part of it. If you were to take out, let's say that the production you're doing right now on just focus on expired, so if you're at a 10, based on, we're going to label you at a 10 right now. If you were to take out the additional touches that I think you mentioned, her name is Elaine or Elena, Elena, the emails, the text messages, the Facebook Messenger, the LinkedIn, take those out and you're just making the phone call. If you're at a 10 now, where would you end up being without all the other touches? Your guess.
Boy, oh boy, that is a guess. I think we're still going to be at a high level.
Okay.
Because those that respond on LinkedIn or Messenger are growing, but still the exception, not the rule.
Okay.
But not enough for me to cut out the activity because we're seeing more and more respond that way.
Interesting. Interesting.
But the phone is still the key. A conversation is still the key.
I love what you said earlier, that you have to choose to do it and you focus on it. Dig in just a little bit more on that.
I personally did this early in my career, I think, and I see people doing it as I've coached agents. Is we're going to try something for 10 days, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It doesn't work, and then we move on. I think you got to do your homework to decide what is your one thing, right? What is your one thing? What do you feel like you're going to be best at? Make sure that it's worked for others and then stick with it and stop jumping. You're going to have to work your sphere. That's one plate of business, right? You have to work your sphere. You have to work the people that you know. And then you're probably only going to have, if you're an individual, you're only going to have one more plate of prospecting categories. And that's it. 2 is going to be about it until you start building a team. And then you're probably still not going to get past 3, maybe 4 at the most. But the more we dilute ourselves, the less effective we become. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
That is so wise. Jack of many, master of none, right?
Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
I love your comment. What is your one thing? And then stick with it. You got to make it work. That's so wise. Let's talk. You mentioned your warm market, people you know. So what are you doing? Okay, so you guys have it sounds like a really high repeat rate from past clients. Talk to me how you got there, or what you find are the key things. If you could just kind of net them out. This is part of the Tosello process that drives the repeat business. What
Yeah.
is that?
Well, first of all, let me say, the last time I looked at the numbers, it was 40% to 50% on both sides of the ball,
Okay.
for purchasers, for sellers. Now, I've seen agents with the decals on their window saying 100% of my business is referred. Well, anybody can claim that. If you stop prospecting
Yeah,
and
that's how I was
getting
going.
new
It's all,
business,
yeah.
it's all 100%. Okay, so to the degree that we continue to try to find new people to help, that number should stay somewhere between 40 and 60%, maybe,
So
So
we're just quantify, we're talking about in a 40, 50, 55 transactions a year are from your personal contacts.
roughly, yes,
Okay,
correct.
okay,
Yeah, or referred from that
okay,
person,
right, right.
right?
Direct or referred,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay,
So that means we can do better. So I can do everything better. I've realized that about myself a long time ago, number one. Number two, what we're doing is taking care of the people. Give you a quick example. A few weeks ago, we had multiple offers come in on a listing, 3. And we, through Colleen, because the strength of the buyers were lacking from a qualifying standpoint, based on what we felt, we suggested the seller not take any of them.
hmm,
And when I tell people that, they're like, yeah, right. Well, that's what happened, because we needed to wait for a stronger buyer. We've been through this road. We've been through most potholes.
right.
So we look far down the road now and see the flags. And a couple days later, we get a strong buyer. So I think people appreciate that. I think people appreciate, like I said, when you sit down and show them what they're really signing up for, what they're getting into, how to avoid the potholes, taking care of them all the way through to closing. And Colleen's one thing is she has a servant heart with a tremendous amount of knowledge of these contracts. And today there's a big disconnect happening, Beatty, with the newer agents. I don't sense the connection, the weightiness that our industry has with wanting us to take care of the legalities and technicalities, and that feeling inside of, I got to do this. I told one of my buyer agents, I said, you need to be paranoid. You need to get the level of paranoia to make sure that you're doing and taking care of the people with regard to legalities and technicalities, or it will bite you. And so that's her one thing. Servant heart, a lot of knowledge. And so take care of the people. That's first and foremost, right?
Right.
And then really what we're doing is, we're sending them out helpful bits of information different times of the year to help them with their homes, with their taxes, those types of things. Nothing unusual, I think. And then, like we have coming up here in a month and a half, where we rent out a movie theater and have dinner first for about 300-ish people, 250, 300, I don't remember the number, and then show a movie. By the way, if you're going to do this, Star Wars kills it. I mean, they sign up like that. So,
I love it.
you do little things like that, right? Little get-togethers. We've had things down in Fort Worth uh, area where we had a cowboy show and food and did all that kind of stuff.
Now,
Cowtown is called.
on your personal contacts, are you and Colleen doing anything, reaching out to them personally? I'll call it the, like the phone call or the pop by or a handwritten note or any of those things, or is it mostly group events and then just automated type of messaging?
Well, no, I will call and she
Okay.
will call.
Okay.
Is it enough? No. It can always be better. A large part of our friends and family are at church. Family meaning our church family.
Right.
So we continue to help those folks. That's a blessing, and we continue to receive their referrals, and that's a blessing as well. So we see them sometimes on a weekly basis.
On the church family, and we mentioned Christ earlier. Talk to me in terms of building your real estate business as a Christian.
Uh-huh.
And I know that's kind of a big, broad question, but let me see if I can narrow it down just a little bit. Um, what does it mean to you to build your business as a Christian? Let's start there. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
So I think what we have to remind ourselves every day is what's the goal, right? What's the goal? Well, to glorify God and enjoy Him for eternity, right?
Right.
That's the big theme of the Bible. It's about Him. It's not about us. So we have to wake up every day and we have to read the what? The Word, right?
Mm-hmm.
Prayer and read the Word, and that's His instruction. 66 books filled of instructions. And I don't know about you, but I got to reread things over and over and over again because there's so much hitting us that we need to read the word, and that's how you stay plugged in and grounded and hopefully humble enough to put His objective ahead of your own, right?
Right.
What was that said? He needs to increase, we need to decrease. Didn't John the Baptist say that? Wasn't he
Yeah.
the one?
Yeah, he
Okay.
did.
So I try to remember that as well as other things. He needs to increase, we need to decrease. And so I think you've got to go ahead and you got to stay grounded in the word. He says, read my word daily that you may not what? Sin against me, right? And so being an auditory is a challenge. I'm auditory, right? People are either visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So as Colleen will tell you, I have to talk everything out with her, and, about our life, business, whatever, right?
Right.
So that's a hard thing because too many words, surely sin is bound to follow, the Bible says. So there's a lot of learning for me to do.
Well, how does it impact? So we talked a little bit about it impacting your reaching out for expireds because
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to call someone that's on the do not call list. How else do you live out your Christian walk in your business, and
Yeah.
how does it impact? Tell me about how you've seen it impact, positive or negative, in what you do.
Yeah, I think all the above, both positive and negative. So, you're trying to walk the life of honesty and integrity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which none of us were prior to Christ, right? Romans 3:23, all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. David said, I was conceived in sin. We're born into a sin nature. Romans 5, the whole chapter, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
under the headship of Adam. I mean, you're born into sin. Christ said in, was it Matthew 7? Out of the heart comes what, baby?
Out of the heart comes sin and all forms of evil. I'm not sure that's my
Pride,
paraphrase of it.
adultery, murders.
Yeah.
So his point was it's not you do something and become a sinner inside all of a sudden, it's from the inside out. That's clearly what the Bible teaches. So Christ comes into your life and he makes the move towards you, gives you the gift of faith and repentance. That's what it says in Ephesians 2:8-9. It's a gift, right? Even the good works further on in that chapter belong to him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that changes your life right then and there. You've been justified at that point when you've repented and believed in him. From that point on, sanctification is your life, and that's about growing closer and closer to him, as Romans 12:1-2 says, right?
Right.
Be a living and holy sacrifice. So I'm not claiming to have landed by any stretch, but it's a daily wrestling match. I only thought that golf was the hardest thing I would ever do in my life. Not the playing of it. Anybody can play, Beatty, but
But to
trying
play
to
well,
improve,
right?
hardest sport, but this is the challenge. But yet he's powering you through it, right? And so your original question was, how does it affect? Well, every day you're trying to get more and more like him, Christ-like, right? That's what Paul said. Imitate me, right? Who is imitating Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the objective. This is the goal. This is why I'm looking at that book and daily, right? Reading it daily. And that's our objective. Does that answer your question or not quite?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it gets in that direction. So, is there anything that you do special or differently? Like if you were to compare how you do your business versus someone else who's not trying to honor the Lord. It's not, they're just being normal. Um, is there anything specific that you do different? Um, is it anything that maybe you purposely do in your business? Like, let me give you a perspective on my end.
Okay.
So, we do these podcasts, and we alternate. Hey, let's talk about business, and then let's talk about Christ. So another one of my podcasts is Radical Faith, and the whole idea is I'm going to live my faith through my business, and I'm going to share what's passionate in my heart, teaching to walk by faith with anyone who will listen to me. And if they don't like it, it's okay. They can either turn it off or go get service somewhere else. So I
Right.
try to live it into my
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
How do you do that with yours? Does that make
Yeah.
sense? What? Okay.
It does. There's a lot of things that are limits as to what we can do. We've used the DNC list as an example. Um, you got to tell it the way it is. You got to tell the truth and kindness and gentleness, and make sure you're taking care of the people. If it means telling them to turn down offers, then tell them to turn down offers. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm on appointments, if I see an open door, I'll share the gospel. Early on, one of my favorite opportunities to share the gospel, I walked in a house. Can I tell you the story real quick?
Please, please.
Um, I walk in this house, and there's this hospital bed in the den facing the TV. It's a single bed with the steel railings, right? Very clinical looking. This man walks up to me, and I'm guessing he's 90 to 100 pounds, with a crew cut, hair graying, drawn in face. And his name is Richard, and he was a sailor in the past. And we sit down at the table. If I remember right, he had a glass of milk here and a glass of beer here, and he's dying of cancer.
Mm.
And his wife sits down to the right, and throughout the meeting, he's using God's name in vain, over and over and over and over. And finally, I felt compelled, almost like God pushed it out. And I said, you keep using his name. Do you know him? And they stopped and they said, what? What are you talking about? Right, out of the blue, I said this, right?
I
In the
love
midst
it.
of a real estate conversation. I said, you keep using his name. Do you know him? He said, what are you talking about? What? I said, you keep using his name. Do you know him? Who? God. I said, you keep using his name, of course, in the wrong way. Do you
Right.
know him? They said, no. I said, do you want to? They said, yes. Kind of getting
Wow.
teary-eyed. So I got a chance to share the gospel. So, there's all kinds of, if you will let people talk, there's almost always a way in to talk about the Lord in some way. Now, do I do that enough? No. My appointments sometimes can go 2 hours. They're ready for me to be gone an hour ago.
Yes.
And I needed to have been gone an hour ago. So I need to do better at trying to find a way to reduce. We're always trying to reduce our listing paperwork, Beatty, but every time we go through it, back to legality, we can't do it. And so it takes time at times
Yeah.
to make sure people's expectations are right. But that's a couple ways that it has, demonstrated itself in our life or manifested itself.
I love it. Hey, let me ask you on a similar but probably different topic. It's similar only if it applies specific to your real estate business. But as we go through life, I was reviewing some notes this morning from one of the sermons my pastor gave, and he made a real great comment. He said, all Christians go through suffering because it's all part of the fallen world. Um, some of us go through Christian suffering, which is specific because of who we are in Christ. But we all go through sickness and hurricanes, okay, and bankruptcies. It's all part of the challenge of life. Is there anything that you can think of that you would like to share where you've gone through some really tough times in your life, and it was your relationship in Christ that carried you through? And if so, how?
I think of a time back in around 1995, which coincided with right when I was somewhere between 95 and 97, I was saved. And I was in partnership with two gentlemen that we went around the country, did seminars for real estate, and got hired for coaching. And, interesting thing is, even though it was real estate, it's another business. It's another learning curve. And we decided that it wasn't working. You know, it was a long-term trajectory to make it work, be profitable, and do it. So we decided to call it off. And you know, I was kind of the money person behind that endeavor. And you know, I had to try to find a way to do things right, taking it apart.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went and got some counseling, and you know, leaned on the Lord. And it was quite amazing the way, even though the stress level was at an all-time high, he brought me through it. You know, the interesting thing, Beatty,
What's that?
I was paying sales tax to the state of Texas on my coaching clients.
Okay.
There was a couple $1,000s I sent in. And when I needed the money to finish paying off debts and such, it came to my attention that you don't pay sales tax on coaching endeavors in the state of Texas. So he had me do this and set up a little bank savings account that I didn't know about.
Yep.
And when it was needed, boom, all of a sudden I get a check from the state of Texas. You know, you
That,
can always turn around and go back and go, man, he is faithful. It's us that need to understand he's faithful, and we need to be more faithful.
you
So
know,
that's
I was going to say um, you know, God always works in the miraculous, and sometimes it looks like providential natural causes,
yeah,
sort of like that. He knew you were coming up against this cash crunch, and he had you put money aside unknowingly so he could bring it back to you at the exact moment. Isn't
yeah.
that
I
great?
mean,
I love it.
oh, it is. It's incredible. I mean, it's just fun to see these kinds of things, you know, and therefore then I need to look back
Mm-hmm.
like we do in the Old Testament, in all the lessons the 40 years taught the Israelites, right? And I look back on my own items and remember he's faithful, because I don't do that enough. I get weak sometimes. I forget.
Yeah.
And that's where we start to stumble.
Well, you know, I just did a podcast shortly. It's going to be coming out soon, called "Our Journey Through the Wilderness," and using, you know, the Israel's journey through there. And what's interesting, and I was, as I was sharing this, I was going, "Uh-oh, it sounds like God's talking to me." Um,
Yeah.
right? You know, sometimes you do that, and we go through the wilderness as a test, not as discipline. Okay, when God sends us to the wilderness, but what's interesting. If you think about it, as the Israelites went through the wilderness, the Lord was always there with full provision.
Yeah.
They didn't see it until they cried out to him, and that's when he brought it, but it was always there, and he never left them
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, miraculous things,
Mm-hmm.
just incredible things. And by the way, you talked about trials. I think I mentioned this to you before. You know, in Romans, um, God, and in many other places, God tells us the reasons for trials. So I've created a little acronym called ECHO, because in Romans it talks about the reason for trials being endurance, character, and hope. ECH, and I add the O, and this is what helps me remember when I'm running into it, right? That there is a purpose for this. It doesn't feel good, but
Yeah,
he gets us through it.
and I think that's where it all. He also says, you know, thank the Lord for the trials. In all things, be thankful.
I know, I know. And it's like, okay. Now, it doesn't mean we have to go and look for the lion and open his mouth and insert head,
Yep.
but always good things happen to our character, right?
Right. Hey,
So,
let me ask you one final question, and then I need to wrap up. So, as you walk with the Lord in your real estate business, and you guys have come through a lot of trends and shifts in the
yeah,
marketplace.
yeah.
You know, sometimes people go through these tough times and they get frantic, they get anxious, and they just really worry. Have you found yourself doing that, or has there been a underlying peace and joy and just a confidence in what's going to happen?
Well, both.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I got it from my grandmother or what, genetics, but I mean, I can worry easily. I can get panicked easily. That's just the truth, okay?
Yeah.
And, you know, but yet there is an undercurrent of the solid rock that we rest on. Christ is the foundation, right?
Right.
I heard one person talking derogatory about the Lord to another agent who was trying to share the gospel. oh, that's just a crutch. I said, I beg to differ. He's the foundation. He's not just a crutch. He's the whole thing. And, I would just say on a practical level, the teams that get to the Super Bowl, and I can say this as a Bears fan in the agony that I've been through, are the teams that block and tackle the best. So go back to the fundamentals and stop jumping around. Contact the people you know, contact people you don't know. It's all about people and talking to them. And you know what, though? Some people say that prospecting is the most important thing in the business. It's not. It's knowing your presentation. Think about it, Beatty. If in 20 minutes you were going to go do a talk to 500 people and you weren't nearly as prepared as you need to be, how would you feel about stepping out on that stage in 20 minutes?
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
And that's how we feel going into prospecting. We're feeling bad. There's this tape in the back of our head saying, you really don't want to set this appointment because you don't know what to say. You don't want to set this appointment. In fact, you know what? You don't even want to prospect because you don't know what to say. So prospecting is not the most important thing. Knowing your presentation and how confident are you? Like when I was helping teach the Bible, I almost memorized. So when I went out there, I was excited about it, motivated about it, ready to think on my feet because I knew the material, right? If I needed to think on my feet with questions. So knowing the presentation and then prospecting. Get back to fundamentals. That's what we do in tough times.
I love it. I think that's a great message to end on because that's so true. Well, Paul, thank you for your time. Is there anything else you would like to share before we close up the call?
The Tosello team?
Yep, please.
Dallas, Fort Worth, 817-656-3519.
So if you've got any referrals to send or make from Dallas, give the Tosello team a call. And I can vouch for Paul. He will take an excellent care of your people, as you can probably sense already.
Thanks. Appreciate that, Beatty.
Hey, Paul, thank you so much for being here. And for those listening, if you like this podcast, please subscribe to it so you'll continue to get it. If you want to learn more about us and how to grow your business, please check us out at getsellerscallingyou.com. Y'all have a very blessed day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it so you never miss another episode. And please like our Get Sellers Calling You Facebook page. Also, if you want to increase sales from past clients and sphere of influence, dominate a geographic farm, or convert home valuation leads, check out our Agent Dominator program. We create custom content that differentiates you from other realtors, then use it to keep you top of mind with your prospects with postcards, targeted Facebook ads, email campaigns, video interviews, and more. And the best part is we guarantee your sales or give all your money back. Learn more at getsellerscallingyou.com and select Agent Dominator in the menu. Thanks for listening to the Get Sellers Calling You podcast. Have a great day.